What sort of public policy related to schematics would be fair to manufacturers and repair shops alike? Okay, that's a better discussion question. Luke, how can a manufacturer protect their IP while also allowing for third-party repair shops to repair these devices? Because first-party repair is not always a good answer, depending on where you are or what your financial means are. It just might not make sense. And then there's that whole reduce, reuse thing. Like, even if it doesn't make a ton of financial sense, shouldn't we enable people to keep these items out of the shredder?
It's kind of actually a pretty tough question, because you could just say like, oh, like patent it, whatever, but that doesn't necessarily work all that great, especially once you get to out of country manufacturers.
Oh yeah, no, it's
very
difficult.
And then you could also say like, oh, well, you should just like stick to your ethics and your morals and whatever, and then like be the company that people want to buy from. And like, yeah, sure, that's all great, but then the world population has shown that if something's cheaper, they don't much care about anything else. So it's kind of tough. I don't know. Making policy for that is going to be kind of tough. I think I don't know. Finding something that is going to work universally, so a situation where it's policy, does genuinely sound pretty hard in regards to forcing people to make things like schematics available. And I don't know if the right to repair movement actually goes that far.
I mean, the thing for me is that I feel like anything that can be found by simply analyzing it, might as well just be provided.
For sure. But how do you make policy around that? Because that's the thing that I'm currently getting hooked up on, is they specifically said policy.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, for my knee-jerk reaction is that I might not want to... Oh, see, it's tough. I was about to say, I might not want to force manufacturers to reveal the model of chip that they're using. But then they have to reveal the trace layout, for example, because that's something that we could just X-ray and find if we were willing to put the time into it, right?
And all you're really doing is increasing the barrier between like large repair shops and like small mom and pop repair shops.
But then if we don't tell them they have to reveal which chips are being used, well, then all of a sudden, if there's a failed component on the board, so okay, you've got a blown trace, now you can painstakingly put a hair-sized wire in to repair that. But if you can't replace the component that caused the trace to blow in the first place, then it's not really useful. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could, here's something. You could have like a stair-step style level of responsibility. So right at release, within some period of time, let's say a year, you can say, look, everything is trade secret. Especially at the rate that technology moves. Within a year, you could say, okay, everything is trade secret. Within 2 years or 36 months, there's an additional responsibility to release it. And then the second that the product is EOL, the second you are no longer producing, let's say, brand new ones or replacement parts, or maybe each of those events triggers a new level of disclosure, by the time this product is completely EOL and you are no longer supporting it in any way, it is my belief that the full schematics just need to be published.
Yeah, and there's potentially another way to approach this that I thought of while you were talking, which is like you're talking, and this is generally how policy goes, so it makes sense, but you're talking about like restrictions that maybe lift over time.
Yeah.
Or I guess more restrictions that come in place over time. You have to release more things over time, which kind of makes sense to me, because it's going to be more interesting to repair this thing after it's been out for a year, 24 months, etc.
Yeah, and it's going to be more likely to come up, right? Like most of them aren't going to fail in the first year, and if they do, they're going to be immediately replaced under warranty.
Yeah. So once you would get to the external repair shop stage, those things would be available. But I could also see a more positive reinforcement angle potentially working, where you go the route of like innovation grants to companies that are willing to support things that are like right to repair. So like up here, there's like Shred and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
You could have that same system, or maybe a very similar system, start applying to companies that are willing to help repair shops keep their things around.
Gremlin Injector over on Floatplane's got an interesting idea. Says EOL could be gamed. Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, we've seen dishonesty from manufacturers in terms of whether or not they are actually still producing a particular part. Like
100%.
theoretically, it's up on their website, but no one's been able to buy it for 6 months. Why don't you just make it by the time the first unit sold is no longer under warranty? Because that puts pressure on manufacturers from two fronts. One is
Extend the
to
warranty.
support them for longer, and two is to provide more information.
I think you'd need to get into the weeds of how you define warranties and stuff at that point, but that's something you could do. Doesn't seem insurmountable. That'd be cool. I'd like that.
Alex P. from our editing team asks, so what about bankruptcies or companies that disappear? That's tough. Now, it's very, I shouldn't say very rare, but I think it's, I'm pretty sure that it's less common these days for companies to utterly disappear the way they might have 100 years ago, because of how much value of a company is tied up in its intellectual property and its patents. So I would say that responsibility should fall to whoever the acquirer is, whoever the acquiring party is. And if they do actually disappear outright, I see no reason whatsoever why that internal information shouldn't just be public domain. As for who administers that, well, that gets a lot more challenging.
Gremlin Injector also said innovation grants equals free money, LOL. Yeah, and it's crazy. I had a conversation with someone very recently about this, about how it's been very hard for us to get things like shred credits and stuff. Even when like I'm not even trying for certain things that I know don't apply, but there's certain things that we do that 100% applies. And we push for it, and then we end up getting in this situation where it like becomes this endless paper train that they want us to fight for. And then you look at mobile game developers, and they have the one that I know of the best has a department, which is a legal team department. Their entire job is capturing government grants. That's literally all they do throughout the entire year is they fight legal battles for government grants. And I'm like, yeah. It sucks that is a profitable thing to have on your team. That sucks.
Yeah.
Personally, I think that sucks. I don't know. I don't want to get like way into the weeds of it, but that's unfortunate.
Production services tax credits are the exact same thing.
I'm sure.
By the time you reach the scale where you can engage with the government of Canada and get that stuff pushed through, you don't need it nearly as badly as you did 5 years ago when you didn't have the kind of time and resources. It's extraordinarily frustrating. And that entire industry seems to be set up to make sure that information doesn't leak outside of the, I'm going to use the term old boys club, even though there's plenty of not boys who are not old in it. But I think you understand the connotation of an old boys club.
Yeah.
They don't want that information about how to do it to leak out. There's so many things that are like that. Like you'd think it just wouldn't be political. Realtors are the same way. Like we have encountered situations where we know for a fact that especially commercial realtors are the worst, where they're absolutely not acting in good faith to best represent their client, because they'll basically, we've been told
they get
in
a
the past,
percentage. So if it sells for more, they make more money.
well, no, not just that. We've been told in the past that they won't even look at our offer unless we are represented by a commercial realtor that they approve, for example.
Like the selling retailers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So our representative needs to be like their buddy, so that everyone can just, you know, it's
100%. Yeah.
It's gross.
Yeah.
It's gross. And like, okay, residential real estate, generally speaking, does a pretty good job of ending up on MLS or RU or whatever else. Commercial very rarely does. It usually changes hands before even being publicly listed. And a lot of the public listings are just like, it's like the client forced them to do it. Like just utterly bare bones, almost never pricing. Like most of the information you need isn't there. So you end up having to contact them and go and see it anyway. And it's by design. It's so that they don't have to work with anyone that they don't want to. I hate it. The whole realtor grift is extremely frustrating, which isn't to say that I don't use one or value the services that ours provides. A very, very knowledgeable broker or agent or whatever else, or assistant, or whatever you want to call it, when you're going through a transaction that it is likely to be, if not will be, the largest that you will go through in your entire life, having an expert guiding hand, can be pretty useful. It's just that most of the ones that I've encountered are flippin' idiots who are just looking to make a quick buck.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of money in it, so.
Yeah, there really shouldn't be as much as there is. No offense.
Canada's real estate situation,
Thanks for watching, and thanks to Drop for sponsoring this week's clips. Top-selling Drop.com audiophile and mechanical keyboard products are up to 30% off from now until May 30th. Check out the sale using the link below.